My hands shook as I watched him step out of that black car. The same sharp jawline, the same cold eyes, the same man who told me I wasn't good enough for his world 5 years ago. And now he was walking toward me in the school parking lot, holding the hand of a little boy who looked exactly like my son. I couldn't breathe. My knees felt weak. Because standing right next to me, gripping my hand tightly, was Tyler, my beautiful 5-year-old son. The son this billionaire CEO didn't know existed. The son who was about to come face to face with his father for the first time. And neither of them had any idea. The worst part? They were walking straight toward us. 5 years earlier, my life was completely different. My name is Rebecca, but everyone calls me Becca. Back then, I was 23 years old and working 3 jobs just to pay for community college. I served breakfast at a diner from 5 in the morning until noon. Then I rushed to my afternoon shift at a bookstore. At night, I cleaned offices in the financial district downtown. I was tired all the time, my feet hurt, my back ached, but I never complained because my mom raised me to work hard and never give up. She died when I was 19, and I promised her I would make something of myself. One cold November night, I was cleaning the top floor of the tallest building in the city. It was almost midnight. Everyone had gone home except for one person. A man sat at a huge desk surrounded by papers and computer screens. He had dark hair that was a little messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. He wore an expensive suit with the tie loosened around his neck. He looked exhausted. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I can come back later if you're busy." He looked up, and I saw his eyes were the brightest blue I'd ever seen. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he smiled, and it completely changed his face. "No, please," he said. "I should be the one leaving. I've been here for 16 hours straight." 16 hours? I couldn't imagine it. "That's terrible. You must be starving." He laughed. "I had coffee for dinner." Without thinking, I reached into my bag and pulled out the sandwich I'd saved from the diner that morning. It was just turkey and cheese, nothing fancy. I walked over and placed it on his desk. "You should eat something real," I said. "Coffee isn't food." He looked at the sandwich, then at me. Something soft appeared in those tired eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That's the kindest thing anyone's done for me in a long time." His name was Jonathan Pierce. I found that out over the next few weeks as our midnight conversations became a regular thing. I learned he was the CEO of Pierce Industries, a company worth billions of dollars. He'd built it from almost nothing after his parents died in a car accident when he was 21. He was only 28 now, but he carried the weight of the whole world on his shoulders. He never treated me like I was just the cleaning lady. He asked about my classes. He wanted to know about my dreams. When I told him I wanted to be a teacher someday, he didn't laugh like other people did. He said teachers change lives and that my dream was beautiful. I fell in love with him without meaning to. It happened on a snowy December night. I was cleaning his office when I slipped on some water someone had tracked in. I went flying backward, and suddenly Jonathan's arms were around me. He'd moved so fast to catch me. We stood there, his arms holding me close, our faces inches apart. "Becca," he whispered. Then he kissed me. For 3 months, we lived in a secret bubble. He couldn't tell anyone about us because his board of directors and his wealthy family would never accept him being with someone like me. I understood. At least, I tried to. We met late at night when no one else was around. He took me to his private apartment where no one would see us. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd dreamed of as a little girl, but I told myself love was enough. I was wrong. Everything fell apart on a Tuesday in March. I went to his office earlier than usual because I had something important to tell him, something that would change everything. I was nervous and excited and scared all at once. When I got off the elevator, I heard voices coming from his office. The door was slightly open. You need to end this ridiculous relationship, Jonathan. It was a woman's voice, cold and sharp. The board has found out about this cleaning girl you've been seeing. Mother, you don't understand. Jonathan's voice sounded strained. I understand perfectly, his mother interrupted. You're throwing away everything your father built for some nobody. She's after your money, obviously. Girls like that always are. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. She's not like that, Jonathan said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. Then prove it, his mother said. Choose your company and your family legacy, or this girl who will drag you down into poverty and shame. The board is ready to vote you out if you don't end this immediately. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I'll end it, Jonathan finally said. You're right. I can't risk everything for... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I turned and ran. I didn't stop running until I got home to my tiny apartment. I cried for hours, curled up on my bathroom floor. The next morning, I called in sick to all my jobs. I couldn't face going back to that building. I couldn't face him. 3 days later, Jonathan found me at the diner during my breakfast shift. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept. He asked me to step outside. In the cold morning air, he told me we couldn't see each other anymore. He said his responsibilities were too great. He said I deserved someone who could give me a normal life. He said a lot of things, but he never said he loved me. He never fought for us. I wanted to tell him about the baby growing inside me. I wanted to scream that he was going to be a father, but looking at his tired, defeated face, I realized something important. He'd already made his choice. His company, his money, his family name, all of that mattered more than me. And I didn't want my child to grow up feeling like a burden, like a mistake, like something that had to be hidden away. So I didn't tell him. I let him walk away. I quit all my jobs and moved to a different part of the city where no one knew me. Being a single mother was harder than anything I'd ever done. I had to drop out of college. I worked from home doing data entry for barely any money. There were nights I went to bed hungry so Tyler could eat. There were times I cried quietly in the bathroom so he wouldn't hear me. But Tyler made it all worth it. He was perfect. He had Jonathan's bright blue eyes and my light brown hair. He was smart and kind and curious about everything. He loved books and animals and asking a million questions. When he smiled, my whole world lit up. I never told him about his father. I said his daddy had to go away before Tyler was born. Tyler accepted this because children trust their parents to tell them the truth. The guilt of lying to him ate at me every single day. For 5 years, I built a life for us. I finally got my degree through online classes. I got a job as a teacher's assistant at a small elementary school. It didn't pay much, but I loved it. Tyler started kindergarten this year at the same school where I worked. Everything was fine. We were happy. We were safe. Then came the school's first parent meet and greet event of the year. The principal had sent out fancy invitations to all the parents. It was supposed to be a special evening where families could meet their children's teachers and see the classrooms. They wanted it to be elegant, so they held it in the school's auditorium and decorated with flowers and lights. I almost didn't go. I was just a teacher's assistant, not a full teacher yet. But Tyler begged me. He was so excited to show me his classroom and introduce me to his new friends. I couldn't say no to his sweet face. I put on my nicest dress, which wasn't very nice at all. It was a simple navy blue dress I'd bought at a thrift store. Tyler wore his best shirt and pants. He looked so handsome and grown up. My heart swelled with pride as we walked into the school that evening. The auditorium was crowded with families. Rich families, I noticed right away. This school was in a much nicer neighborhood than where we lived. I'd only gotten Tyler in because I worked there and got a discount on tuition. Looking around at the expensive clothes and jewelry, I felt out of place. "Mommy, look!" Tyler pointed excitedly at a table with cookies and punch. "Can I have some?" "Sure, baby," I said. smiling at his excitement. Just one cookie, though, okay? While Tyler carefully selected his cookie, I looked around the room. Parents chatted in small groups. Teachers mingled with families. Children ran around playing. It all seemed so normal and nice. Then the auditorium doors opened. I turned to look, and my entire world stopped spinning. Jonathan Pierce walked in. He looked exactly the same, but somehow even more handsome. His dark hair was perfectly styled now. His suit probably cost more than I made in 3 months. He moved with confidence and power. Everyone in the room noticed him. Conversations paused. Heads turned. But I barely registered any of that. Because holding his hand was a little boy about Tyler's age. A little boy with dark hair and bright blue eyes. A little boy who looked so much like Tyler, they could have been twins. My vision blurred. My chest felt tight. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Jonathan had a son. He'd moved on. He'd found someone else. He'd built the family with someone else that he'd refused to build with me. The pain was so sharp I almost gasped out loud. 5 years of telling myself I'd made the right choice, that Tyler and I were better off without him. All of that crumbled in an instant. "Mommy?" Tyler was tugging on my dress. "Are you okay?" I looked down at my beautiful son and forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. I just felt dizzy for a second." "Maybe you should sit down," Tyler said with concern. He was always so thoughtful, so caring. "Here, hold my hand." His small hand slipped into mine, and I held on tight. I could do this. I just had to stay calm. The auditorium was huge and crowded. The chances of us running into Jonathan were small. We'd just stay on the opposite side of the room. We'd avoid him. Everything would be fine. "Mrs. Henderson!" Tyler suddenly shouted, waving at his kindergarten teacher across the room. "Come on, Mommy! I want you to meet her!" Before I could stop him, Tyler started pulling me through the crowd. Straight across the auditorium, straight toward where Jonathan Pierce stood with his son, talking to a group of other parents. "Tyler, wait!" I tried to slow down, but my 5-year-old was determined. We weaved between people. We were getting closer, 20 feet away, 15 feet, 10 feet. Then Tyler stopped suddenly. He'd spotted something. A little girl had dropped her stuffed rabbit. She was crying quietly in the corner, too shy to ask anyone for help. Tyler noticed her immediately. "Mommy, that girl lost her bunny," Tyler said. "We should help her." My sweet, kind boy. Even in this moment, he thought of others. "That's a great idea, baby," I said, relieved for the distraction. We changed direction toward the little girl. Tyler picked up the stuffed rabbit and handed it to her with a big smile. "Here you go. You dropped your friend." The little girl's face lit up. "Thank you," she said happily. "I'm Tyler," my son said. "What's your name?" "Emma," the girl said shyly. They started talking about stuffed animals and favorite colors. I watched them, my heart full of love for my compassionate son. This was what mattered. Not billionaire CEOs who chose money over love. Not the past that couldn't be changed. Just this moment, this beautiful boy I'd raised to be kind and good. "What a sweet young man you have." I froze. The voice came from behind me. A woman's voice that I recognized instantly. It was burned into my memory from that awful night 5 years ago. I turned slowly. Jonathan's mother stood there. She looked older but just as elegant and cold. Her eyes swept over my cheap dress and worn shoes with barely concealed disdain. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice barely steady. She looked at me more closely then. Her eyes narrowed. I saw the moment recognition flickered across her face. "Do I know you?" she asked slowly. Before I could answer, Tyler came bounding back over. "Mommy, Emma's mom said we can have a play date," he said excitedly. Then he looked at Jonathan's mother politely. "Hello, ma'am." "Hello, young man," she said, but she was still staring at me. "Your mother and I were just—" "Mother, there you are." Jonathan's voice cut through the noise of the auditorium like a knife. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He walked over to us, and for the first time in 5 years, Jonathan Pierce stood 3 feet away from me. His eyes met mine. I watched as confusion crossed his face, then recognition, then shock so complete that he actually took a step backward. "Becca?" he whispered. Tyler looked up at me, then at Jonathan. "Mommy, do you know this man?" And that's when Jonathan's son came running over, calling out, "Daddy! Daddy! I found the bathroom!" The little boy stopped next to Jonathan and grabbed his hand. Then he looked at Tyler standing next to me. The two boys stared at each other. They looked like mirror images. The same eyes, the same face shape, the same exact features. Jonathan saw it too. His face went completely white. His eyes moved from the boy next to him, to Tyler, to me. I watched him do the math, watched the realization hit him like a truck. "Becca," he said again, his voice shaking now. Is Tyler?" But before he could finish that question, before this moment could explode into something I couldn't control, the lights in the auditorium suddenly went out. Complete darkness. Children screamed, adults shouted, chaos erupted, and in that darkness I heard something that made my blood run cold. Tyler screaming my name, not from next to me where he'd been standing, from somewhere far away in the crowd. "Tyler!" I screamed into the darkness, pushing through bodies I couldn't see. "Tyler, where are you?" My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Panic flooded every part of my body. I'd let go of his hand for just 1 second when the lights went out. Just 1 second, and now he was gone. "Mommy!" His voice came from somewhere to my left, high-pitched and terrified. "Mommy, I can't find you!" "Keep talking, baby, I'm coming." I shoved past people, not caring who I bumped into. "Keep calling for Mommy! Everyone remain calm!" A man's voice boomed over the chaos. It sounded like Principal Andrews. "The backup generator will kick in shortly. Please stay where you are and don't move." But I couldn't stay still. Not when my son was scared and alone in the dark. "Tyler," I called again. "I'm here. His voice cut off suddenly. "Tyler. Tyler!" My panic turned to terror. Why had he stopped talking? Then the emergency lights flickered on. They were dim and cast weird shadows everywhere, but I could see again. I frantically scanned the crowd of people, searching for my little boy. There, by the stage. Tyler stood perfectly still, and my heart nearly stopped. He was face to face with Jonathan's son. The two boys stood so close they were almost touching, staring at each other with identical expressions of wonder and confusion. Even in the dim emergency lighting, the resemblance between them was impossible to miss. Everyone around them had noticed, too. Parents whispered to each other. Fingers pointed. I heard the word twins being murmured over and over. I rushed over and dropped to my knees, grabbing Tyler into my arms. "Oh, thank God you're okay." "You scared me so much." "I'm sorry, Mommy," Tyler said, but he was still looking at the other boy. "When the lights went out, I got pushed by the crowd. This boy found me. He helped me." "I heard him calling for his mommy," Jonathan's son said in a small voice. "He sounded scared like I was, so I followed his voice. Then the lights came on and we saw each other and—" He trailed off, looking confused. "Why does he look exactly like me?" Tyler asked, his blue eyes wide with innocent curiosity. "Mommy, why do we look the same?" Before I could answer, Jonathan was there. He moved through the crowd like a force of nature, his face a mixture of emotions I couldn't read. His son immediately went to him, grabbing his hand. "Daddy, did you see? This boy looks just like me," the boy said excitedly. Jonathan didn't answer his son. He was staring at Tyler with an intensity that made me want to run. His eyes traced every feature of my son's face. I watched him catalog each similarity, each impossible coincidence. His hands were shaking. "His name is Tyler," Jonathan said quietly, like he was in a trance. "You named him Tyler." It had been my father's name. The father I'd never met, but my mother had loved deeply. Jonathan knew that. I'd told him during one of our late-night conversations 5 years ago when we still believed in forever. "This is my son, Matthew," Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "He just turned 5 last month. The same age as Tyler. Born around the same time. To another woman Jonathan had been with while we were together, or right after we broke up. The betrayal felt fresh and raw all over again. "What a coincidence," I said coldly, standing up and keeping Tyler close to me. "They could almost be brothers." The word hung in the air between us. Brothers. Because that's what they were, weren't they? Half-brothers who didn't know it. Who couldn't know it? Not yet. Not like this. "Becca, we need to talk," Jonathan said urgently. "Please, there's so much I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain," I interrupted. "You moved on. You have a family now. That's wonderful. Tyler and I should go." "No, you don't understand." Jonathan reached out like he might touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Mommy, why are you angry?" Tyler asked, looking up at me with worried eyes. "Did that man do something bad?" Children see everything. They understand more than we think. I forced myself to smile and smooth down Tyler's hair. "No, baby. I'm not angry. I'm just tired." "It's been a long day." Principal Andrews appeared then, looking flustered. "Folks, I'm so sorry about the power outage. Apparently a car hit a power line down the street. The lights should be back on fully in a few minutes, but we're going to end tonight's event early for safety reasons. Thank you all for coming." Perfect timing. I could leave. I could get Tyler out of here before this situation got any worse. "Come on, sweetie," I said, taking Tyler's hand. "Let's go home." "But I wanted to show you my classroom," Tyler said sadly. "I'll see it another day, I promise." As we turned to leave, Matthew suddenly spoke up. "Can Tyler be my friend? I don't have many friends yet." There was something so lonely and hopeful in his voice that it broke my heart. Despite everything, despite the complicated mess of the situation, this was just an innocent child who wanted a friend. Tyler looked up at me with pleading eyes. "Can I, Mommy? Please?" I looked at Matthew. Really looked at him. He had his father's features, but there was a sadness around his eyes that reminded me of myself. Something about him seemed fragile, like he needed kindness more than most kids his age. "We'll see," I said gently to both boys. "Maybe someday." Jonathan opened his mouth to say something, but his mother appeared again, placing a firm hand on his arm. Up close, I could see she definitely remembered me now. Her eyes were sharp with recognition and something else. Worry, maybe. Or calculation. "Jonathan, we need to leave," she said firmly. "You have that conference call with Tokyo in an hour." "Mother, this is important." "Your business is important," she said meaningfully, glancing at Tyler and me. "Some things are better left in the past where they belong." The message was clear. She wanted us gone. She wanted us to disappear back into whatever hole she thought we'd crawled out of. "Goodbye," I said quietly, and pulled Tyler toward the exit. We made it to the parking lot before Tyler started asking questions. "Mommy, who was that man? You seemed really upset when you saw him." I knelt down and looked into my son's sweet, innocent face. How could I explain this without breaking his heart? Without breaking my own heart all over again? "He's someone I used to know a long time ago before you were born. We were friends once, but then we weren't anymore." "Why did you stop being friends?" "Sometimes people want different things in life," I said carefully. "And that's okay. It doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. It just means their paths went different directions." Tyler thought about this seriously. Did his path go toward lots of money? He seemed really rich. His clothes were really fancy. My smart, observant boy. Yes, his path went toward money and business. Where did your path go? I smiled and cupped his face in my hands. My path led straight to you, and that's the best path I could have ever taken. Tyler hugged me tight. I'm glad your path came to me too, Mommy. I love you more than anything. I love you more than anything too, baby. We got in my old car, which made terrible noises when I started it. As we drove away from the school, I watched the building shrink in my rearview mirror. Inside, Jonathan was probably still standing there, his mind spinning with questions and realizations. Good. Let him wonder. Let him feel confused and lost. It was a fraction of what I'd felt 5 years ago when he chose his company over our love. But as we drove through the darkening streets toward our small apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about Matthew. That lonely little boy who just wanted a friend, who looked so much like Tyler they could switch places and no one would know. Where was Matthew's mother? Jonathan hadn't had a wife with him tonight. His mother had been there, but no woman his age. No wedding ring on his finger either, I'd noticed. So many questions. But they weren't my business anymore. Tyler and I had our life. We were fine. We didn't need Jonathan Pierce or his billions or his complicated family. We stopped at a red light. Tyler was humming in the back seat, already moving on from the strange evening. Children were resilient like that. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it quickly, expecting maybe a message from my coworker. It was from an unknown number. Please don't shut me out. Matthew needs you. Tyler needs you. I need you. We have to talk. Tomorrow. Please, Jay. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. How had he gotten my number? Probably from the school directory. Of course he had access to that. The light turned green. I drove forward, leaving the message unread and unanswered. We got home to our small 2-bedroom apartment. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Tyler took his bath and brushed his teeth. I read him his favorite story about a brave little mouse who went on adventures. He fell asleep halfway through, like he usually did. I sat on the edge of his bed and watched him sleep. His chest rose and fell peacefully. His little hand clutched his stuffed elephant. He looked so much like Jonathan it hurt. For 5 years I'd protected him from the truth. I'd built a safe, happy life for us away from the world that had rejected me, away from the man who'd chosen money and power over love. But now that world had come crashing back in, and I had no idea what to do. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Becca, please, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But there are things you don't know, things I couldn't tell you before. Matthew's situation is complicated. He needs help. I need help. Please give me a chance to explain everything. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back one word. When? His response came immediately. Tomorrow, noon. The coffee shop on 5th Street. Please come alone. I shouldn't go. Every instinct told me to delete his number, block him, pretend tonight never happened. Going to meet him would only open old wounds. It would complicate everything. But he'd said Matthew needed help. Whatever else Jonathan was, he'd never been dramatic. If he said his son needed help, he meant it. I looked at Tyler sleeping peacefully. He deserved to know his father. He deserved to know his brother. Even if it hurt me, even if it meant facing the man who'd broken my heart. I typed, I'll be there. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about the look on Jonathan's face when he realized Tyler was his son. The shock, the pain, the regret. Good, a mean part of me thought. Let him feel regret. Let him understand what he missed. But another part of me, the part that had loved him so completely 5 years ago, felt sad. Sad for all of us. Sad for what could have been. Morning came too quickly. I got Tyler ready for school, packed his lunch, kissed him goodbye at the classroom door. He ran off to play with his friends, already forgetting about last night's strangeness. Children move forward so easily. Adults carry their past like heavy stones. At 11:45, I stood outside the coffee shop on 5th Street, trying to calm my racing heart. Through the window, I could see Jonathan already sitting at a corner table. He looked different in casual clothes, jeans, and a simple sweater, more like the man I'd fallen in love with in those late-night office conversations. I pushed open the door. A bell chimed softly. Jonathan looked up, and our eyes met. This was it. No turning back now. I walked toward his table, each step feeling like I was walking toward my past and my future all at once. But before I could reach him, before we could start whatever conversation was about to happen, the coffee shop door burst open behind me. A woman ran in, her face wild with panic. "Is anyone here a doctor? Please, someone help. There's been an accident outside. A little boy—" She couldn't finish. She just pointed outside with a shaking hand. Jonathan and I both rushed to the window. My legs nearly gave out. Lying in the street, surrounded by a crowd of people, was a small boy in a blue jacket. The same blue jacket Tyler had worn to school this morning. I ran faster than I'd ever run in my life. My feet hit the pavement so hard pain shot up my legs, but I didn't care. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The only thing in my mind was that blue jacket and my son lying in the street. "Tyler!" I screamed, pushing through the crowd. "Move! That's my son!" People stepped aside. I fell to my knees beside the small body on the ground. It wasn't Tyler. It was Matthew. Relief and guilt crashed through me at the same time. Relief so powerful I almost sobbed. Guilt because this was still a child lying hurt on the cold street. A little boy who looked just like my son. "Matthew!" Jonathan dropped down beside me, his face white as paper. "Matthew! Can you hear me?" The little boy's eyes were closed. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead. His breathing was shallow, but he was breathing. "Someone call an ambulance!" Jonathan shouted, his voice breaking. "Please!" "Already done," a man said, holding up his phone. "They're on their way." "What happened?" I asked, looking at the people standing around us. "He ran into the street," a woman in a jogging suit said, her voice shaky. "Just ran right out from the sidewalk. The car tried to stop but couldn't in time. It clipped him and he fell." "Where's his caregiver?" Jonathan demanded, looking around frantically. "He's supposed to be with someone. He's never supposed to be alone." "I don't know," the jogger said. "He was by himself when I saw him." Jonathan gathered Matthew carefully into his arms. "It's okay, son. Daddy's here. You're going to be okay. Just hold on." Matthew's eyes fluttered open slightly. "Daddy?" His voice was so small and weak. "I'm sorry. I wanted to see my brother again. I snuck out." My heart clenched. He'd snuck out to find Tyler. This accident was because these two boys wanted to see each other again. "Shh, don't talk," Jonathan said, his voice thick with tears. "Save your strength. Help is coming." "Is he going to be all right?" I asked quietly. "He has to be," Jonathan whispered. "He has to be." In the distance, sirens wailed. The ambulance was coming. Matthew's eyes closed again, and Jonathan held him tighter, rocking slightly like he was comforting a baby. I'd never seen Jonathan Pierce look scared before. 5 years ago, he'd always been so confident and in control. Even when he ended things between us, he'd been calm and composed, but now, holding his injured son, he looked completely broken. The ambulance arrived in a blur of red lights and urgent voices. Paramedics rushed over with equipment. They asked Jonathan questions while they checked Matthew's vital signs and carefully placed a brace around his neck. "He's stable," one paramedic said. "Possible concussion. Definitely needs stitches for that head wound. We need to get him to the hospital for x-rays and a full examination." They loaded Matthew onto a stretcher. Jonathan climbed into the ambulance with him. "Wait," I said, surprising myself. "Which hospital?" "St. Mary's," the paramedic answered. Jonathan looked at me through the ambulance doors. His eyes were red and desperate. "Please come. Please, I need—" His voice broke. "I can't do this alone." The doors closed before I could respond. The ambulance drove away, sirens screaming. I stood there on the empty street, my mind spinning. I should go home. This wasn't my problem. Matthew wasn't my son, and Jonathan wasn't my responsibility anymore. But I couldn't stop seeing that little boy's face. Couldn't stop hearing him say he'd snuck out to find his brother. I pulled out my phone and called my supervisor at school. "I have a family emergency. I need to take the rest of the day off." Then I drove to St. Mary's Hospital. The emergency room was chaos. People everywhere, phones ringing, nurses rushing around. I found Jonathan in the waiting area, his head in his hands. He looked up when I approached, and the relief on his face was overwhelming. "You came," he said, standing quickly. "I didn't think you would." "How is he?" "They're running tests. The doctor said it doesn't look too serious, but they want to make sure there's no internal bleeding or brain swelling. They're keeping him overnight for observation." I sat down in one of the hard plastic chairs. Jonathan sat beside me, close but not touching. "Where is Matthew's mother?" I asked quietly. "Shouldn't she be here?" Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Matthew doesn't have a mother. Not really." I turned to look at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "After you and I—" He paused, struggling with the words. "After everything fell apart, I was a mess. I threw myself into work even harder than before. I was angry at myself, at my mother, at the world. I went to a business conference in London about 3 months after we ended things." He stopped, running his hands through his hair. "I met a woman there, another CEO. We were both lonely, both using work to avoid our feelings. We spent one night together, just one night. I flew home the next day and never saw her again." My stomach twisted, but I stayed quiet. 8 months later, she showed up at my office with a baby, Matthew. She said he was mine, and the DNA test proved it. "But Becca—" He looked at me with haunted eyes. "She didn't want him. She said she couldn't be a mother. Her career was too important. She signed away all her parental rights and left. I haven't heard from her since Matthew was 3 months old." I couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was telling me. "So I've been raising him alone." "Well, not alone. My mother helps. I have nannies and caregivers. But none of that is the same as having a real mother. Matthew asks about her sometimes. Why she didn't want him. Why she left. And I never know what to say." "That's terrible," I whispered. "That poor little boy. He's struggled," Jonathan continued. "He's shy. He has anxiety. He has nightmares. My mother says he'll grow out of it, but I don't think so. He needs more than what I can give him. He needs—" He turned to look at me directly. "He needs what Tyler has. A mother who loves him unconditionally." "Jonathan." "I know what you're thinking," he said quickly. "That I have no right to ask you for anything. That I walked away from you. That I chose my company and my money over us. And you're right. I did all of those things, and I've regretted it every single day since." "Then why did you do it?" The question burst out of me, 5 years of pain behind it. "If you cared at all, why did you just let me go?" "Because I was a coward," Jonathan said, his voice breaking. "Because my mother told me you were after my money. And some stupid part of me wondered if she was right. Because the board was threatening to vote me out, and I was terrified of losing the company my father built. Because I was 28 years old and didn't know how to choose love over fear." Tears streamed down his face. I'd never seen him cry before. "I went to find you 2 weeks after we ended things. I'd resigned from the board. I'd told my mother she could either accept you or never see me again. I was ready to give up everything. But you were gone. You'd moved, changed your number. No one knew where you'd gone. I searched for months, Becca. I hired investigators. I checked every possible lead. But it was like you'd vanished. I didn't want to be found, I said quietly. I was pregnant and alone and heartbroken. I couldn't face you. You were pregnant. He said it like he was testing the words, like he still couldn't quite believe it. Tyler is mine. He's my son. Yes, and you didn't tell me. You'd already made your choice, I said, my own tears starting now. What was I supposed to do? Show up with a baby and force you to take responsibility? Watch you resent me and our child because we ruined your perfect life? I would never have resented him, Jonathan said fiercely. Never. If I'd known, but you didn't know, and I made the decision I thought was best for my baby, for our baby. We sat in silence, years of pain and misunderstanding stretching between us. Mr. Pierce? A doctor in blue scrubs approached us. Matthew is awake and asking for you. Jonathan stood immediately. Can I see him? Yes, he's in room 304. He's going to be fine. Minor concussion, some bruising, 6 stitches in his forehead. He was very lucky. Thank you, Jonathan said, relief flooding his face. He started toward the elevator, then turned back. Becca, will you come with me, please? I think it would help Matthew to see a friendly face. I should say no. I should keep my distance. But I thought about that lonely little boy who just wanted a brother, who'd gotten hurt trying to find connection. Okay, I said. I'll come. We rode the elevator in silence, walked down the hallway in silence. Outside room 304, Jonathan paused. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, Tyler deserves to know his father, and Matthew deserves to know his brother. Can we agree on that much at least? I thought about Tyler, who'd asked about his father so many times. Who deserved to have a dad in his life. Yes, I said. We can agree on that. Jonathan opened the door. Matthew was sitting up in the hospital bed, looking small and scared with a big white bandage on his forehead. When he saw Jonathan, his face crumpled. Daddy, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to find Tyler. I wanted to play with him. I didn't mean to be bad. You're not bad, Jonathan said, rushing to his son's side and hugging him gently. You scared me, but you're not bad. You're perfect. Matthew buried his face in Jonathan's shoulder. I don't have friends at school. Everyone thinks I'm weird because I'm too quiet. But Tyler talked to me. He was nice. I wanted him to be my friend. My heart broke for this sweet child who just wanted what every kid deserves, friendship and kindness. Hi, Matthew, I said softly, stepping closer to the bed. I'm Tyler's mom. You can call me Miss Becca. Matthew looked at me with wide eyes. You're Tyler's mom? You're so pretty. Tyler said you're the nicest person in the whole world. I smiled despite my tears. That's very sweet. Tyler thinks you're very nice too. Really? Matthew's face lit up. Can we be friends? Can Tyler come play with me? I think that can be arranged, I said, glancing at Jonathan. Matthew, Jonathan said carefully, Miss Becca and I need to tell you something important, something that might be confusing at first, but it's actually really wonderful. What is it? Matthew asked, looking between us. Before Jonathan could answer, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and my heart stopped. It was Tyler's school. I need to take this, I said, stepping into the hallway. Hello? Ms. Henderson? It was Principal Andrews, and her voice was shaking. I'm so sorry to bother you, but we have a situation. Tyler didn't come back from lunch recess. We've searched the whole school. We can't find him anywhere. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. Tyler was missing. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The hospital hallway spun around me. Tyler was missing. My baby was gone. Becca? Becca, what's wrong? Jonathan was in the hallway, holding my shoulders, his face filled with concern. Tyler, I gasped. The school can't find him. He's missing. Jonathan's face went pale, but his voice stayed calm. When did they last see him? I picked up my phone with shaking hands. Principal Andrews? When did you last see him? At lunch recess, around 12:15, she said, her voice tight with worry. The teachers were doing a head count to bring the children back inside, and Tyler wasn't there. We've checked every classroom, the bathrooms, the gym, the cafeteria. We've called his name everywhere. Ms. Henderson, I've already called the police. They're on their way. I'm coming right now, I said, already running toward the elevator. Don't stop looking. Please don't stop looking. Jonathan was right beside me. I'm coming with you. What about Matthew? My mother is on her way. She'll stay with him. He was already texting rapidly on his phone. I'm also sending my security team to help search. They'll be at the school in 10 minutes. We ran to the parking lot. Jonathan pointed to a black car. We'll take mine. It's faster. I didn't argue. We got in and Jonathan drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic but staying in control. He kept one hand on the wheel and used the other to make phone calls. This is Jonathan Pierce. I need your help. A 5-year-old boy named Tyler Henderson is missing from Riverside Elementary School. Yes, right now. I need every available person searching. Check security cameras in the area. Check traffic cams. Find him. I sat frozen in the passenger seat, my mind racing through terrible possibilities. Where was Tyler? Was he hurt? Was he scared? Did someone take him? He's going to be okay, Jonathan said firmly, like if he said it with enough conviction it would be true. Tyler is a smart boy. He's your son. He knows how to be careful. What if someone took him? I whispered. What if... Don't think like that. Not yet. Let's get to the school and find out what happened. We arrived at Riverside Elementary in record time. Police cars were already there, lights flashing. Officers were spreading out around the building. Parents who'd heard the news were arriving, talking in worried clusters. Principal Andrews rushed over when she saw us. Miss Henderson, I'm so terribly sorry. We're doing everything we can. Tell me exactly what happened, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Every detail. The children were playing at recess. Tyler was on the playground with his friends. The teacher on duty, Mrs. Park, was watching all the children. She looked away for maybe 2 minutes to help a little girl who'd scraped her knee. When she looked back, Tyler was gone. The other children said he'd been there just a moment before. Did anyone see him leave the playground? Jonathan asked. One child said Tyler was looking at something by the fence that borders the parking lot. But that's all we know. My legs felt weak. Jonathan caught my arm and held me steady. A police officer approached us. Are you Tyler's mother? Yes, I said. Please, you have to find him. He's only 5 years old. He's never wandered off before. Something's wrong. I know something's wrong. We're doing everything we can, ma'am. Can you describe what he was wearing today? A blue jacket. The same blue jacket. I stopped, a terrible thought hitting me. Wait, Matthew was wearing a blue jacket too, the same kind. I bought them at the same store. They're identical. Jonathan and I looked at each other, the same realization hitting us both. What if Tyler saw Matthew this morning? Jonathan said slowly. What if he followed him somehow? But Matthew was with his caregiver, I said. Wasn't he? Jonathan pulled out his phone and called a number. Sandra, where are you? Why weren't you with Matthew? He listened, his face growing darker. You were in the bathroom for 5 minutes and he slipped away. 5 minutes was all it took? He was shouting now. Get to the hospital. We'll discuss this later. He hung up and looked at me. Matthew's caregiver lost track of him this morning. He snuck out of the house before she realized. That's how he ended up on that street near the coffee shop. So both boys snuck away at almost the same time, I said, my mind racing. What if they were trying to find each other? What if they planned this somehow? But how would they communicate? Jonathan asked. They only met last night. Then I remembered. Last night at the school when we were leaving, Tyler asked if Matthew could be his friend. They were standing close together. What if they exchanged something? Kids do that. They trade toys or share secrets. Matthew has a phone, Jonathan said suddenly. A basic one, just for emergencies. What if he gave Tyler his number? We looked at each other with new hope and new fear. If the boys were together, that was good. But where were they? My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered desperately. Mommy? Tyler's small voice came through and I nearly collapsed with relief. Tyler, oh thank God! Where are you, baby? Are you okay? I'm okay, Mommy. I'm with Matthew. We're hiding. Hiding? Hiding where? In the secret fort. You know, the one you showed me last summer, where we go to feed the ducks. The park. The small park by the river, about half a mile from the school. There was an old gazebo there surrounded by bushes where Tyler and I sometimes had picnics. He called it his secret fort. Tyler, listen to me carefully, I said, fighting to keep my voice calm. Stay exactly where you are. Don't move. Mommy is coming right now. Is Matthew with you? Yes. He's right here. His head hurts from his accident, but he said he had to come find me. We had to talk about something important. What's important, sweetie? We'll tell you when you get here, Mommy. Both you and Matthew's daddy. You both need to come together. Promise? I looked at Jonathan, who'd heard every word. He nodded. We promise, baby. Both of us are coming. Stay hidden and stay safe. We'll be there in 5 minutes. I hung up and told the police officer where Tyler was. I'm going to get him now. We'll send a unit with you, the officer said. No, Jonathan said firmly. He's scared. Seeing police cars might frighten him more. Let us get him. We'll bring him straight back here. The officer hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. If you're not back in 5 minutes, we're coming in. Jonathan and I ran to his car. The park was close enough to see from the school. We could have walked, but every second mattered. We found the gazebo easily. Tyler had been right. It was hidden behind overgrown bushes that made it feel like a secret place. I pushed through the branches and saw them. Tyler and Matthew sat close together on the gazebo floor. Tyler had his arm around Matthew's shoulders. Matthew's head bandage was visible, and he looked pale and tired. But both boys were safe. Mommy! Tyler jumped up and ran into my arms. I held him so tight I probably hurt him, but I couldn't let go. Tears poured down my face. Don't you ever scare me like that again? I sobbed. Do you understand? Never. I'm sorry, Mommy, Tyler said, crying too. But I had to. Matthew needed me. Jonathan had scooped up Matthew, checking him carefully. What were you thinking? You just had an accident. You're supposed to be in the hospital. I'm sorry, Daddy, Matthew said. But Tyler and I had to talk. We had to figure something out. Figure what out? I asked, pulling back to look at Tyler's face. The two boys looked at each other, having some kind of silent conversation. Then Tyler spoke. Mommy, Matthew and I know we look the same. Really the same. And last night, Matthew's grandma said something about how it was impossible. How two boys who aren't related can't look that much alike. My heart started pounding. So we figured it out, Matthew continued, his voice getting stronger. We must be brothers, real brothers, which means... He looked at Jonathan. Tyler's mommy and my daddy must have been together before. That's the only way it makes sense. Tyler looked at me with his bright blue eyes, Jonathan's eyes. Is it true, Mommy? Is Matthew's daddy my daddy too? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. How was I supposed to answer this? I looked at Jonathan helplessly. He knelt down so he was at eye level with both boys. Yes, he said quietly. It's true. I'm Tyler's father. You two are brothers, real brothers. I knew it, Matthew said, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. I knew we were brothers. That's why I felt so happy when I met you, Tyler. That's why it felt like I already knew you. Tyler looked at me, then at Jonathan, processing this huge information. So you're my dad? My real dad that Mommy said had to go away? I didn't know about you, Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. Your mother never told me she was going to have a baby. If I had known, I would have been there every single day. I would have helped take care of you. I would have loved you from the moment you were born. Why didn't you tell him, Mommy? Tyler asked, looking at me with confusion but not anger. Why didn't you tell my dad about me? I knelt down too, taking Tyler's hands in mine. Because I was scared, baby. Your dad and I had stopped being together, and I thought he didn't want to be with me anymore. I thought if I told him about you, he would feel trapped. I wanted you to be wanted, not just accepted. I wanted you to be loved. But I would have wanted him, Jonathan said, tears streaming down his face now. I would have loved him more than anything, just like I love Matthew. I didn't know that, I whispered. I made a mistake. I thought I was protecting Tyler, but I was really just protecting myself from getting hurt again. We all sat there in that gazebo, years of secrets and pain finally out in the open. Two little boys who'd found each other despite everything. Two adults who'd loved and lost and hurt each other. So what happens now? Matthew asked in a small voice. Do we get to be a real family? Do Tyler and I get to be real brothers all the time? Tyler looked at Matthew, then at Jonathan, then at me. I want that, Mommy. I want a dad. And I really want Matthew to be my brother. He's my best friend in the whole world already. We just met yesterday, I said, laughing through my tears. Sometimes you just know, Tyler said with the simple wisdom of children. Sometimes people are meant to be in your life, and you can feel it right away. That's what you always tell me about you and me. You said the moment I was born, you knew I was meant to be yours. That's how I feel about Matthew. He's meant to be my brother. Jonathan looked at me over the boys' heads. In his eyes, I saw everything we'd been through. The love, the pain, the regret, the hope. We can't change the past, he said quietly, but we can choose our future. These boys deserve to grow up as brothers. They deserve to have both parents in their lives. Whatever else we need to figure out, can we agree on that? I looked at my son, who was hugging his brother like he'd never let go. I thought about all the years Tyler had asked about his father. All the times I'd wondered if I'd made the right choice keeping them apart. Maybe there were no right choices, only human ones. Maybe all we could do was try our best and hope it was enough. Yes, I said. We can agree on that. Tyler and Matthew cheered, hugging each other tighter. We still had so much to figure out. Legal things, custody arrangements, how to blend our very different lives, how Jonathan and I would work together after everything that had happened between us. But looking at those two boys, identical and happy and finally together, I knew one thing for certain. Love had brought us back together, and maybe, just maybe, love would be enough to keep us that way.